When Reverend James asked me if I'd like to be the guest speaker on Wednesday, he asked me Wednesday at 3 o'clock. I knew that yes was the right answer, and yet I could feel my system go into alert mode. I'm not ready. What will I say? What will I wear? Clothes would be a good option. It was just blah, blah, blah. The voice for the familiar, the one that wants to keep us safe when our system goes into alert mode. We've been studying that voice in the book, The Untethered Soul. So as you can see, I did listen to the part of me that wanted to say yes and not the voice of fear. The part of me that wants to contribute and make a difference, won out. We are always presented with opposites: fear and love, light and darkness, joy and sorrow, grief and grace. We live in a world of dualities and contrasts, and we are faced with making choices about where we will focus our attention. Rumi, a Persian poet and Sufi mystic who lived over 800 years ago, wrote about the opposites of sorrow and joy. Here's what he has to say. Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. It shakes the yellow leaves from the bough of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. Whatever sorrow shakes from your heart, far better things will take their place. That is quite a promise. Sorrow prepares us for joy. And I have learned from my own experience that the soil of sorrow is rich with blessings, but only if we use it to grow our spirit. The temptation exists to let it devastate and bury us rather than elevate and open us. If you fully open your heart to grief, you will discover it's a doorway to awareness, to a deep connection to yourself, to your strength, your resilience, your capacity to experience love and joy. I'm going to take a poll. How many Pollyannas do I have in the room? See, I got some hands, yay! Yeah, and how many won't admit to being one? A few more hands, okay. I've been called a Pollyanna more than once and have proudly defended that positive attitude towards life, sometimes, and other times I've kept quiet. Pollyanny-ish has become a derogative term used to put down someone who isn't being realistic. However, if you read the story of Pollyanna or watch the movie, which is really one of my favorites, she was taught by her father to play the glad game. The goal was to try and find something to be glad about in every circumstance. Her way of being glad transformed an entire town. Sometimes it's not at all apparent that there is something good in whatever happened, or that sorrow is preparing us for joy. Most of us don't want to hear platitudes in the middle of the pain. We are probably not interested in transformation. We just want the pain to stop. Don't tell me to look for the silver lining, or for every down there's an up, and when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I am not in the mood, and I am in the grip. Pollyanna needs to chill. Well, Pollyanna is a work of fiction, yet the story points to a truth that is very real. We are the ones who get to choose what things mean and name them either good or bad. This capacity for choosing how we will respond helps us break the grip of pain, and create our desired outcome. I recently returned from a week of training with Jack Canfield. He's noted for his Chicken Soup for the Soul series, his role in The Secret, and his courses and books on self-esteem and success principles. Canfield's formula for success is simple. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. We cannot control the event. How many have tried to control the events? Yeah, how's that going for you? Well, we can't control the event, but we can affect the outcome by our response to the event. We must become what I call conscious choosers. Being able to consciously choose requires being aware that there's even a choice available to us. There is a certain awakeness in our inner world that is called for. The more we can keep our hearts open and stay present, even in the depth of the pain and sorrow, the more we can use our grief to open new avenues of awareness and possibility. Through our own soul searching in the midst of sorrow, we can pass through the grief and ride an upward spiral of healing into a state of grace and gratitude that may seem impossible and out of reach at the beginning of our journey. For every journey, there are some helpful tools. If you're going to go backpacking, you don't want to bring ballet slippers. And if you're going to go rock climbing, you need to have all those pulleys and thingamajigs so you don't fall off the face of the mountain. So I have learned that there are some helpful tools when you're traversing the gap between grief and grace. Ways that I could manage my thinking and practices I could engage in that moved me forward. The first one, notice what you're noticing. Pay attention to your inner world of thoughts and feelings. You cannot choose if you are not aware of choice points. It's also important to feel everything fully, the pain and the joy. That was the first thing I noticed, that as my heart was open, I could feel the whole spectrum. And it was an interesting mix. Numbness is a safe resting place. It's not a destination. Focus on what you want and not on what you don't want, because your mind's going to go where you focus. Keep your heart open and do your best to stay present, not in the past, not in the future, in the present. And finally, listen to your heart's wisdom. When you are tuned into your heart, even in the midst of pain, you will be guided. These tools will not only help you move up the spiral of healing, but will also enhance your ability to transform any difficult life circumstance. Any event which breaks open our heart with the sword of sorrow brings us face to face with the challenge to change and grow spiritually, to make sense of it all, and to demand a blessing. We can become conscious choosers. Someone who knew and powerfully demonstrated his freedom to choose his responses is Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning. He was about 33 years old when he was taken to the concentration camps. He survived almost 4 years in multiple Nazi camps, including Auschwitz, and lived to be 92, actively practicing, publishing, and making a difference. Even in the worst imaginable inhumane circumstances, Frankl held firm to the belief that man's spirit can rise above his surroundings. He writes, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Often, it is just such an exceptionally difficult external situation which gives man the opportunity to grow spiritually." When Frankl was being processed by the SS into his first camp, he stood naked in front of his captors. He was stripped of his name. He was given a tattoo on his arm. His identity, his clothing, even all of his body hair was shaved off. He was separated from his beloved wife and his parents and he never saw them again. Not one of them survived. The guards destroyed his only copy of a manuscript containing his life's work on logotherapy, and finally even made him remove his thin gold wedding band. There was nothing left. Yet Frankl realized that no one could force him to give up hope, or to hate, or to let go of the possibility that he would survive and be able to continue his work as a psychiatrist. He writes, "The experience of camp life show that man does have a choice of action. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts, comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." We all have times when tragedy strikes, when the pain and sorrow are so intense that it makes finding a blessing nearly impossible. Those times when we are plunged into what St. Thomas Aquinas and St. John of the Cross call the dark night of the soul, where everything we believed about ourselves gets turned upside down, when it feels like we've been cut off from our joy. When faced with our own dark night of the soul, is it possible to maintain a belief that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, living in a friendly, loving universe that is conspiring in our favor, urging us to grow and become all that we can? It didn't feel like a friendly universe when I got the phone call. My practice of looking for the blessing and knowing I get to choose my response met its greatest challenge 2 years ago. July 25th, 2013 began softly, quietly, just an ordinary day. The morning coolness from our Sacramento Delta breeze blew gently through my open windows. It was a beautiful summer day just beginning. My morning cup of coffee was brewing as I emptied the dishwasher. My youngest son, Michael, age 36, was away visiting his dad. He had called 2 nights before saying he was going to visit for another night or so. Only the morning sounds of the birds and the squirrels and wind chimes filled the air until my phone chirped from my bedroom nightstand at 7:35 a.m. That call forever changed my life. When I answered, my ex-husband's wife identified herself and began telling me what felt like a very long story about my son Michael and a truck. Maternal alarms fired off inside of me as I asked, "Where's Michael? Is Michael okay?" thinking he must be injured. I heard her say, "I don't want to tell you this," followed by the words, "Michael's gone." My mind could not grasp the impact of the most dreadful words any parent could ever hear. No parent could ever prepare themselves for news like this. I certainly didn't see anything good in the death of my precious son, and my inner Pollyanna was silenced. I plodded through the next few days, making impossible decisions, preparing to celebrate Michael's sweet life, and dealing with the finality of his death. I wondered if my shattered heart could ever feel whole again. When I look back at the first 5 days, from hearing the news to sitting with family and friends on my patio after Michael's celebration of life service, I could see that I experienced the full complement of human feelings and emotions: shock, despair, pain, sadness, numbness, confusion, fear, anger, regret, and a pain in my heart that is difficult to describe. But you know, I also experienced hope as well as laughter and joy, love, compassion, tenderness, gratitude, awe, and wonder. Those emotions continued to cycle through my life for several months as I groped my way through the grief and sorrow. I wrestled with this pain and demanded that it give me a blessing. I held on to the rock of my belief that even in the darkest moments, I could experience hope and love. I journaled. I turned to Michael, still my best friend, even though no longer here in the flesh, asking him for guidance and help. We began learning a new language of connection while I blindly inched my way along the path from pain to peace. I wasn't sure what possible good could come of Michael's death, but I was determined to see if I could create some. If life dared to take from me such a treasure, then I believed it must absolutely bring me an equally positive blessing. This became my quest, my vision, to find the good, to allow it to win with me, to say yes to the sweetness of life, and to light the way for others on this path. Anyone faced with what seems like an insurmountable wall of grief can access the upward spiral of healing. The impact of what feels like a huge loss, the death of a loved one, especially a child, the ending of a marriage, a diagnosis, a prolonged illness, has the potential to either devastate and destroy your life or transform you, taking you on a journey of the heart that will lead you through a spiritual doorway into a more powerful, connected, and purposeful life. There is an upward flow of healing energy inviting you and pulling you forward into wholeness if you will just step fully into it. Joy will be there if you welcome and watch for it, if you can stay open to the possibility of healing. Sometimes it's impossible to tell the difference between tears of sadness and tears of joy, as they both pour forth from a broken, open heart. Let the tears flow. Surrendering into this experience allows you to float to the surface of the pain, to trust the love that sustains and heals and holds you. Then, just as a caterpillar completely surrenders to the chrysalis before emerging as the butterfly, there comes a time for you to complete the work in the cocoon and leave it behind. Give yourself as long as you need. There's no right way to grieve and no timetable to adhere to. Life marches on and you get to choose the cadence that you can handle. There is great value in paying attention to your own unfolding process and mining it for the gold. The day will come when something inside of you begins waking up to a new way of being, a new normal. Perhaps a day ends and you notice this particular day didn't include any tears. It's the first time. I remember that day. Perhaps something that once triggered you into an episode of sadness passes quietly by and you feel more peace than pain, more joy than sorrow. This is a time to celebrate. With this new normal comes a sweet awareness and mindfulness of each present moment. The next turn on the upward spiral. Your appreciation for life, for the fragileness and preciousness of now, will expand. Knowing at any moment it could all change, could disappear, makes it even more important to pay attention, to express your love, and to drink life in. When you have emerged from the depth of the pain and are standing in the presence of life's gifts right here and right now, you become very aware of any thoughts that try to pull you back into suffering. The ability to pay attention to the thoughts you are thinking is vital to this part of the journey. Stay present, use your tools, notice, listen, choose. Try playing the glad game. Find a way to frame what happened so that you are not feeling like the victim in the story. Instead, you are the chooser, the hero, the one determined to find your way through and gather your blessings along the journey. This new normal is full of possibilities. You get to choose which thoughts you want to spend time with. Your choice determines if you'll become bitter or better. When you employ your tools of transformation, paying attention, noticing, staying present, listening to your heart's wisdom, you have the power to choose a higher possibility. Grief can be your greatest teacher. You can arrive at a place of freedom and serenity, a state of grace. It becomes a gift we give each other as we model what's possible. You can find new meaning and purpose and tell a story of hope to others who need you to shine your light so they can see their way through the darkness. We need each other. We are called to shine God's light wherever it's needed for those dwelling in the dark places of life, the darkness of one's circumstances, the darkness of a situation a person may have no control over, the darkness of people's limiting beliefs. I'm truly able to say, yes, my heart has healed. Today I am stronger, yet more vulnerable than ever, and I've captured many blessings along the way. I've learned to refocus my mind, rise above doubts and fears, and think the thoughts that allow me to honor Michael, to celebrate the years we had together, and create for myself a new normal that is rich with possibility and promise. I discovered I had a choice, and I chose to focus on the beauty and the love and not miss it by being sad and wishing things were different. Rumi is right. Sorrow prepares us for joy. So I invite you to proudly practice your Pollyanna attitude, play the glad game, and know that your light makes a difference. If grief has cracked open your heart, keep it open and know that wholeness, joy, and laughter await you.